for us to think about, is that at some point, many of the families in our communities had to make that decision about whether or not to opt into the term colored or not, and whatever it meant, right? But then my father has to go back. Now remember, he's 16 at the time. He has to go back to reclassify because it's gonna have consequences to be classified differently from the rest of the family. And I think no one could have even predicted at that point that the consequences would have been the Group Areas Act. And the way the Group Areas Act split people up and created, in many senses, colored communities as we know them now. But my father goes back to that classification office with that clerk sitting there and making decisions about who is who, and presents with an English name, presents speaking Afrikaans. Nothing has changed about the way he looks, by the way. He still presents exactly the way he looks, and he's classified as colored. One other thing that's come up in the conversations we had is the role that reclassification played during apartheid with colored communities particularly. And the idea that being reclassified either as colored or away from being colored was a big deal for people. And I think that that's an important place to start because the identity of being colored is deeply, deeply historical and deeply, deeply political. But it was also created through a lot of violence. Because when I think about what happened to my father in those classification offices, my father lost his name through that process. My father was almost 80 years old when I learned that his name was a Setswana name. He had not used it in almost 70 years. That is violence. It also meant that he got arrested at some point for working in his aunt's shop because his aunt's shop was in a so-called native community. That is violence. It meant that when he had children, he didn't teach us the language he grew up with. That is violence. And so a lot of time when we talk about, especially because people still ask, why do you use the word colored? You know, it's an apartheid term, all of those things. And there's almost a judgment of the use of the word colored and the term colored, because there's this idea that by calling yourself colored, you are removing yourself because you don't want to still have that sense of privilege that the ranking gave us. But with that privilege also came a lot of violence. But of course, that's not the first historical moment of coloredness. There's many different moments, and I want to just talk about the first time we found the use of the word colored historically, myself and Lindsay. The first time we could find was when Cecil John Rhodes, after the slave period in the Cape, was looking for laborers to exploit for the diamond fields. And so he decided that native people, as he saw them, were going to be too hard to exploit because of the way that they would be able to organize themselves. And so the formerly enslaved and the people who were of the Khoi and the San, he called them colored because they were smaller groups and they were groups that didn't have the origins of being here because they were formerly enslaved. And it was because he thought they were easily exploitable that he called them colored and created them as a different labor class. And it was also the first time putting colored communities versus the rest of black communities in the country. So we must always remember that coloredness was a part of the project of white oppression of black people. It was part of creating divisions where divisions didn't need to be.
Tessa, I'm going to ask you just to hold it here. I need to go pay some bills, as always. But we're going to come back. And, of course, if you just join us and you're wondering what is happening, yes, indeed, this conversation is happening in front of a live audience where we're actually having a conversation regarding reflecting on 30 years of democracy and freedom with the colored community. We'll be back after this.
Here's to the next 30 years of epic deals from Vodacom. Get the new Samsung Galaxy A30 for only 369 Rand per month over 36 months. Plus, get a free in-store accessory spend worth 300 Rand. Enhance with smart tech. Add the Samsung Galaxy Watch 6 Bluetooth for just 99 Rand per month over 36 months. Here's to the next 30 years of connection. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom.
Swipe and save on all your extra favorite drinks at Checkers Liquor Shop and get savings like 750ml Cliptriff Premium Brandy for $184.99. Save 35 Rand. Valid until 9 May. In-store at Checkers Liquor Shop. Not for persons under the age of 18. Drink responsibly.
Proudly sponsored by the Muteko Foundation and hosted by the Mpumalanga Provincial Government. This is okay. Hashtag MMA24. Hashtag Back to the Future. Integrity. However you define democracy, treasure it. Rocking 30 years of democratic strides. Hey yo, turn the beat up a little bit. Get ready for a radio revolution that transcends boundaries and elevates your senses. From chart toppers to timeless classics, we got it all.
Sometimes it makes me wonder how I keep them going.
This is more than radio.
You got me working.
This is Metro FM. We define the pulse of your musical journey. Don't just listen. Immerse yourself in the ultimate audio experience. My flow, where the beat never fades and the entertainment never ends. Started like this, son. Turn it up and let the magic unfold. Metro FM. It's where you want to be. Can we just talk? Metro FM Talk with Faith Mangope. Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Of course, the conversation continues this evening as we're delving deeper into the colored community as we reflect on this 30 years of democracy and freedom in our nation. And of course, ahead of the 29th of May, where South Africa gets to decide who gets to lead them for the next 5 years. I'm going to build from what Tessa was saying before we went into an ad break, Gushwell, and really bring this one to you. I'm going to speak from a native, maybe we should use native or black African or black South African woman. And I'm going to speak from the conversations or the assumptions, which is great because we get to break assumptions this evening. From the assumptions that we've grown up with, at least assumptions that I've grown up with, and of course you'll be able to share the truth in those assumptions, is that the classification of the violent classification by Cecil John Rhodes when it comes to colored, and it was a means of being able to exploit labor. As we go into 1948 with the National Party and, of course, with the now institution of Apartheid, there was always this, and it even is perpetuated amongst black Africans in wedding songs. It's twang twang twang, wana utwana lili kaladi, meaning this child is so beautiful, they look like a colored. So from black Africans' perspective, we were not pretty. If you wanted beautiful, you had to look at a colored person. That's why wana utwana lili kaladi. And from our side, of course, it was a way of violating us further. So we've often thought that colored people, there's an assumption that colored people were better because their hair was straighter for some. The complexion was fairer for some. And then those who were of a darker complexion and more curly or coilier hair, it was, yeah, but you're pretty, but you're not like a colored. So just talk to us a little bit about how that identity politics, and I'm making it from the I'm speaking from the outside in, but from the inside in terms of how that identity politics played within the apartheid system, especially within the colored community themselves.
Well, thanks, Faith, for quite a difficult question. Good evening, everyone, and to all the listeners listening. I'm just listening to what Tessa was talking about in terms of how there was even some people that had to make that tough decision in terms of reclassification, and that reclassification towards being colored would have probably been preferred. And the simple reason for that, you go back to 1948, is because black African people were denied citizenship of the Republic of South Africa. Let's start there as a starting point. And that is why black people needed to carry passes, because it was a passport giving you access for work purposes to the Republic of South Africa within classified white areas, basically. Colored people and Indian people, along with white people in South Africa, were citizens of South Africa, the Republic of South Africa. Black African people were citizens of the TBVC states. And out of interest, the only country in the world that recognized the TBVC states. And the TBVC states were Transkei, Botswana, Venda, and Ciskei. The only country in the world that recognized those states, countries, was South Africa itself. So, but having citizenship as a colored person or as an Indian person didn't give you paradise. It was still nonsense because you still had Group Areas Act and all kinds of other things that limited your rights in terms of where you lived, where you could be socioeconomically active, etc., etc., etc. So in other words, what was then done was that, and going back to what Tessa was saying earlier, is that homogeny was created where it does not exist. All people of mixed race origins were clustered into this group called colored. And then to create a further hierarchy amongst people, colored people, there was then Cape Malay, Cape Colored, other colored, Griqua, and goodness knows whatever other classifications that came up. And it was a deliberate thing that was done so that you could create a hierarchy of races. So that black African men were the factory workers. The colored man was then their supervisor. The foreman and the management was always white. So you go tell them what to do. And you tell us who's misbehaving. And it creates a very dangerous layer within society. Because what you are doing within society is that you are saying you're a little better but not good enough. And unfortunately, what we have to be honest with is that mentality, that violence, sticks generationally.
Sure.
What you were talking about specifically is colorism. Now, let me give you an example. I was in Rome in 2016, right? I had to go do a presentation. At the time, I was working with refugees and asylum seekers. And with a name like Gushwell Brooks and looking like this, and for the people at home who need the theater of the mind, I got dreadlocks, okay? I'm sorry, basically I'm that guy that you can't really figure out what the heck is this guy. So there was this really short Tasmanian man. Now, Tasmania is the little island south of Australia. And he came to me and he's like, "Hi, mate, what are you?" And I said to him, "I'm colored." And the guy bursts into tears. Obviously, I didn't just say, "Hey, I'm colored." There was a bit of a conversation. And he burst into tears and is like, "Don't do that to yourself." Because why? The term colored is seen as derogatory everywhere else in the world. So I had to explain to him the politics of what it means. Politically, I am black. Because under apartheid, guys, I wasn't Mr. Johan van die Kerk. I wasn't. I didn't have the same rights. But at the same time, I was saddled with this identity of being colored. And within my own community, I experienced colorism because my hair was never straight enough. You were mentioning the pencil test. My family would have failed the pencil test, guys. The pencil test didn't really mean anything. The issue was that colored was ascribed to a group of people of mixed race origins. And it was to create a sense of homogeny in a group that is clearly heterogeneous. People with different ethnicities and backgrounds and things of that nature. And as I said, it was created as a mechanism of colonialism, of apartheid, to create a buffer between white supremacy and then the suppression of black people. And unfortunately, that leaves, and maybe we'll get to this conversation later on, that leaves communities in a very tenuous space where they almost feel that they don't fit in. And it's a narrative that, yes, is perpetuated and people feel that way very correctly. But unfortunately, it's also damaging and paralyzing because then it leads to inaction. Because the expectation is that iemand moet iets doen. As opposed to, guys, we need to fix our own situation. Well, and I'll get to that as the conversation goes.
Samantha, again, as we're getting deeper into the identity politics that were institutionalized, that were deliberate in terms of the outcome, and that outcome really, as we're understanding this evening, it was just a form of cheap labor. We needed people that are different to us, that are going to, be exploited so that we can make as much money as possible and we can loot this entire country of ours. Be that as it may, when it comes to the way in which identity politics have been transferred from that specific generation to generation, how are we faring in breaking the generational curse? Or do we still have in colored communities today that, oh, Samantha's got nice straight hair and she's got nice curly hair, so she's different? And what role does language play in that? Do you have to be Afrikaans speaking to be considered as colored? If I'm in Durban and I speak English, am I colored? What role does language now play in that?
Wow, she came with that question. Okay. Do you know, Faith, the one thing that I've realized and learned over the years, while at the same time trying to unlearn my colored identity, and not in the actual fact of unlearning who I am, is that you understand that there was obviously an intentional division that was created. And as we've carried on into the new democracy, it has been perpetuated through those cycles, but it was intentional. So if there was a hierarchy to our blackness and the person on the top was considered, was basically judged based on their proximity to whiteness, you try and hold on to that. So even in 2024, we cannot say that we've not experienced texturism or colorism. It happens. And whether we know where it comes from is a different conversation altogether. And I think that is the conversation that people have not held. And that is why this conversation is so important, because as we sit here as panelists of 7 people, so-called colored people, none of us will be able to explain the coloreds and all our history. In its entirety, it's not possible. Because someone will be able to say to you, but Samantha, I don't have black in my DNA. So when you say that you are black by race and colored by culture, what do you mean? Because they took that colored term and a very wide umbrella and they put everyone under that umbrella. So how do you dismantle that system of oppression? It's a very difficult thing. But conversations like this allows people to understand, where does the colored term come from? How much violence was inflicted in our people to get to this point here? And why it is that, I remember I had a conversation with DJ Witbooi, and I said to him that people are very harsh towards the colored community, but they don't know where the colored community comes from. And it's referred to as epigenetics. Epigenetics pulls over from one generation to the other to the other. And unless you are able to explain that and say to your child, this is where we come from, they'll never be able to unlearn that. So it's a very intentional thought that needs to go into dismantling the system of oppression and our coloredness. And I think that is why when Tessa spoke about, when people ask, why do you hold on to that colored term? It's because there is a history of pain and suffering and oppression that you cannot just disregard and assume that that history did not happen, because it happened. And whether or not our people have embraced it is another conversation altogether, sure. But it has reflected in our current democracy.
Let me ask a controversial question. And maybe, you know, I'm going to open it up to the floor so that I don't make anybody feel, those who are brave enough to answer it, please do go ahead and answer it. You know, do you think that black South Africans resent colored people? A, for the privilege that was orchestrated intentionally by an oppressive system. B, for the, yeah, you were marginalized, but not like us. You were, but not like. Do you think, and do you feel, let me ask with maybe feeling, do you feel as a colored community that black South Africans resent you? Anyone can take this one.
Thanks, Faith. I think just on that particular question, yes, indeed, that is the case, that most black people think that coloreds were better off than they were. Now, I was born in the dusty streets of Kliptown. And people, when they reflect about Kliptown, they would refer to the world because you had everybody that stayed in that area, white, black, Indian, colored. And what we have learned is, growing up, we didn't see color. So for the people that grew, even the black people that grew up with us, we just saw each other as, this is my friend, Peter. This is my friend, Tabo. But when you go into the space in terms of your work, the workspace, there is that perception. But further than that, it even goes deeper. Within your own families, I'm talking about brothers and sisters. If we had to go, my own family, if we had to go through the pencil test, miskien was ek 'n weeskind. Because everybody's hair straight, mine is like my father's, so ek is my pa se kind. So our joke in the family was always to say that, hey, no, the lady that worked for us left me on the roof with sunlight soap on my hair. Just to, but it became a joke, but it's not really a joke. And this is what has happened to us. Now, if you look at the term colored, it's not just as easy spoken as you had numbers. 00 meant you had straight hair. It went to 07. And even that, in the areas where we grew up in, you had your one bedroom, those were the low class people. Yet when you go to White City, which is next door to Eldo's, we also had one bedroom dwellers there. So we were the same. But because of our historic past and how some were made to feel better than others or superior than others. Now, if you go back to the employment status, during the 80s specific, in fact, 60s and 70s, there were specialized work that coloreds could apply for. You could either become a teacher, a factory worker, you can be a social worker, or you'll be a nurse, not even a doctor. That is high grade for you. Then you go to your 90s. In the 90s, working in the bank, you have made it. As a colored person, you have made it. Go to the 2000s, go to any call center, check who's the supervisors there. Because we were programmed to say, you are good enough for this. And it's at that level that we also started to doubt ourselves that, hey, what's happening here? So we also at fault in terms of how we perceived how others saw us. But I think that time now has ended because every eye has opened and people are more receptive of other cultures. And this is why we talk about one South Africa for all.
Peter, I'm gonna stay with you on that one. Can I just stay with you on, because it just led me to another controversial question. So you're saying that black South Africans, there is an element of resentment that exists. Do colored people see themselves better than blacks?
No. I think when go to any colored township, in fact, there's no longer the term colored townships. It's multiracial because we've accepted everyone from everywhere to be amongst us. And we live in unison, and we are able, that people are marrying into families and everything else. So it means that it brought us to accept this is our situation. If you go to sports, let me just divert a little bit. And I'm speaking specifically Eldorado Park because that's where I'm from. In 2000, while they were renovating Orlando Stadium and all of those, Eldorado Park was good enough to bring your under 23s, under 20s, everybody else came to play soccer there. Go to that facility now vis-a-vis all the other facilities that we see around us. It's a joke. So it tells you that even those that we thought will liberate us further put us to say that the black townships are better than the colored townships.
Hold it there, Peter. I'm going to come to you also, Dereleene, after the break. Charis, I'm going to come to you as well. And then what we're going to do after this particular session, we're going to then open it up to the floor. If you've got questions as well, if you want to add to the conversation, please do feel free to do so. Just raise your hand, and then we'll make sure that the microphone gets to you. As I said, please keep your comments or your questions very brief because we've got lots to get through within the 2 hours together. But for now, let's go pay some bills. We're going to come back, and then we're going to continue with our panelists after this.
Metro FM. It's where you want to be.
Turn your Hollywood Bets gaming experience into a spectacular casino royal adventure. Bet up to 100 Rand or more on selected Hollywood Bets, playtech slots, and live tables. And you could win one of 3 luxury trips for 2 to Las Vegas. Hollywood Bets, feel the magic.
T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. Hollywood Bet supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Do you believe in love at first sight, or should I walk by again?
Is that the best you've got?
Well, I've also been wondering, did it hurt when you...
Not the angel line.
Look, I'd ask if you're a parking ticket because you look so fine. But how about we just share a castle double malt together?
Now that's smooth.
Instead of using cheesy pickup lines, simply ask her to share a Castle Double Malt with you. Perfect for finishing smooth. Be extra smooth with Castle Double Malt. Not for persons under the age of 18. Enjoy responsibly.
Metro FM is committed to a code of conduct as outlined by the Broadcasting Complaints Commissioner of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech or violence or explicit sex. If you believe that our programming is not being adhered to, you have the right to be heard. Direct any complaint in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commissioner of South Africa to BCCSA, P.O. Box 412365, Craig Hall 2024, or send an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit bccsa.co.za. Let's go. 2 days. That's right. Only 2 days left of the penultimate Metro FM Music Awards.
My most memorable Metro FM Music Awards was 2018 Swane, but I know that Mbombela can win that title back.
Hurry and get your tickets now at CompuTicket.
The best collaboration song goes to...
Don't miss out on South Africa's biggest music awards in Mbombela, Mpumalanga.
And the support has just been so phenomenal, and this award, oh my God, it means everything.
Saturday, 27th April. Metro FM. Black to the future.
It's time to carve yourself, because prepping Wena means protecting Yenas. To stay forever Wena, get tested whenever forever ask for consent. Condomize. My sex, if you're not feeling it, be forever prepped and forever status checked, because it's not one or the other, it's forever Wena. Know your sexual health options and choose you. Visit foreverwena.co.za.
Everybody knows. With over 3 decades in the game, now listen. It's now a different playing field. What it is. Don't touch that dial. Metro FM. It's where you want to be.
Can we just talk?
Metro FM Talk with Faith Mangope. Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
All right, it's 44 minutes after 7 o'clock. Of course, the time is certainly speeding ahead as we get deeper into being able to dissect exactly the experiences, the politics, the realities, the socioeconomic realities of the colored community pre and post apartheid. And maybe we should be saying post the 30 years of democracy, and exactly how do we build a truly inclusive, non-racial society, or maybe we should call it a truly inclusive, racially conscious society. Nonetheless, so we've got our guests that are able to deliberate further on this matter this evening, and as we're going into the historical context, obviously, of the colored community, where exactly does the term even colored come from, as we've heard a little bit earlier on. Can I also ask that if you want to drop us a voice note or also add your comment into this conversation, 0860 002160, that is the number to dial. On our WhatsApp line, it's 0605527303. Dereleene, you also had a comment to add on some of the issues around identity politics, but also looking at, should I call it the privilege, the assumed privilege of being colored?
Yes, thank you so much, Faith. Allow me to firstly say that it is actually so sad, sitting here 30 years post-apartheid, that we're still having a colored conversation. But it's our reality, and we need to do this. And I'm so appreciative of the guests that spoke earlier on that could enlighten us as they have gone deeper, delved deeper, and studied our history. You know, growing up, for many of us, we weren't privileged to such conversations. I think the most we've ever heard, myself, was Mom having to sit on the top at the back in the bus because she wasn't white enough. The most we've ever heard was, you know, Mom not having access. She couldn't go into a restaurant because of the color of her skin. And my dad always used to say, you know, driving through the riots, 76, this is what we needed to do to get through. So, you know, we weren't conscientized and we didn't have these conversations growing up. And I'm speaking about myself and many other people in my community. When we have this conversation, we're not able to reflect on our history. The only time I think we sensitize to it and we become aware of our surroundings is basically as we grow older and we start, you know, delving deeper into who we are and where we actually come from. You asked a very interesting question earlier on, and you said, do coloureds think that they are better than blacks? When we started this conversation, you said that, you know what, we need to be brutally honest here this evening. I'm going to differ with my colleague next to me, and I'm going to say yes and no. In my family, in my circle of friends, we still have people where when a black person comes to visit, hy kry nog daai zinc enamel bord. And this is more our elderly folk, our grannies, our aunties from way back. And I kind of don't blame them for their behavior because I call it the scars of apartheid. They were set up to think and behave that way. It pains me that when the white man comes to our funeral and comes visiting, we take out the china. Ons haal die beste uit. And I'm not saying this is us. I'm saying some of our family members. I'm saying that I hear the auntie saying, "Ganali die divor vir jou hare." And I can still see that sometimes in our family members and in our circles, there's the discrimination from colored people onto colored people, from us by us in our own spaces. And all of this is as a result of the scars of apartheid. So it is still rife. Inequality exists today in all spaces. You know, and you can see it sometimes when you're walking into a room, there's still the stigma, the perception that we are violent, the perception that we think we are better. I think, like I said earlier on, it is sad that 30 years into democracy, we are still having this conversation. And when you look at and you reflect on the situations and everything that is unfolding in our community, and listening to the gentleman and listening to Tessa earlier on, it almost then still feels as if though we are still living in the era of apartheid. Thank you.
Sure. Charis, you co-founded an organization called Colored Lives Matter Too. And there has been this, at least, and I'm going to speak from a media perspective because ours is to get the stories and understand the stories. So I consider myself privileged to at least have a little bit of insight. But the importance of these conversations so that I can dive deep and hopefully be educated more. And there's always this notion that under apartheid, we were not white enough. Under democracy, we're not black enough. Is that still a sentiment and a reality and a feeling amongst colored people that you couldn't get to whiteness under apartheid, but you can't get to blackness under democracy?
It is definitely a feeling that we have at this point. But we also now need to start changing the narrative, because it's almost become an excuse for us to a large extent. So as the co-founder of Colored Lives Matter Too, we've realized that, number one, we need to step up and take responsibility for what we've done to ourselves by always being fence sitters, by always making the excuse and saying, I'm not black, I'm not white enough, or I'm not black enough. The reality for us at this point is we are enough. We are human first. And that was probably the reason why myself and Neville came up with the concept, because it's entirely about our humanity. It's entirely about who we are and the fact that we need to accept each other. We need to get to a point where it's no longer a case of how straight is my hair, but how beautiful are you? How full are your lips? How broad are your hips? Because those are the things that we have to embrace, not just about ourselves, but also about the next person. We need to stop seeing all of the negative connotation that has been applied to us over the years and come to accept ourselves first. And that is probably the most important thing for us at Colored Lives Matter. We strongly believe that if we accept and value who we are, accept and value who our parents and forebears were, so that we can understand where we come from, then we are going to appreciate the next person more. And
Charles, can I just ask that you hold it there? I don't want the system to cut you. I'm being told that I need to go to an ad break. But when I come back, I'm going to come straight to you so that you can also finish your thought process, because this one becomes important, especially around what do we mean by taking accountability and what does that look like? That's coming up next.
Mitsa Kumzi, SACS for short. Sax has just picked up the sax. Saucy. Except when Sax plays his saucy sax, he sucks. Yep, Sax's saucy sax sucks. Shucks. And even tomorrow, Sax will still suck. But not forever and ever, because usax uya foster. And also foster until he sucks so much less that he sucks no more. Yes, suck says. Because sucking at something is the first step to being dope at it. Here's to that. Cheers to keeping the ones our foster refreshed. Hunters.
Refreshes like nothing on earth.
Not for sale to persons under the age of 18.
The Metro FM Awards 2024. Thank you very much. Proudly sponsored by the Mutsepe Foundation and hosted by the Mpumalanga Provincial Government.
This is amazing right here.
Hashtag MMA24. Hashtag Black to the Future.
Metro FM Talk Recap with Faith Mangope.
The leader of the Patriotic Alliance, Gayton McKenzie. So where do you stand between power and the principle?
Politics is power. South Africans need to disengage from this thinking that politicians come in like, no, we for the principle. Where's the principle today? These are the Codesa things they got people in Codesa 30 years ago. For me, I'm in politics for power. Because power gives jobs. Power gives opportunity. Power makes you take decisions. Principle. So yeah, right. When I become president of this country, I will say the same thing I said in Central Karua. I will tell you, this is your problems. This is the time frame I give myself to solve your problems. So this country needs me. This country needs a benevolent dictator. I'm your guy.
Metro FM Talk with Faith Mangope. Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
The Metro FM Music Awards weekend is here. Catch the official pre-party at the Prestige Lifestyle Grand in Bombela on Friday the 26th of April. Featuring Gubza the Small, Mahoo, DJ Storky, Black Diamond, The Musical Chef, Emo, plus Metro FM's Naked DJ, Lulo Cafe, Lemmy's Holworthy. Get your tickets at CompuTicket. Table bookings available from Prestige Lifestyle Grand. Hashtag MMA24. Black to the future.
The vibrant tapestry of our nation, thriving at 30. Some of the most important people in history. Metro FM, commemorating 30 years of democratic resilience.
Can we just talk?
Metro FM Talk with Faith Mangope. Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
All right, it is 54 minutes after 7 o'clock. Of course, the conversation continues this evening. We're doing things differently. We're in the auditorium at the SABC as we continue having a conversation reflecting on this 30 years of democracy and freedom with the colored community. And the question that, of course, we pose is around, before we went into a break, was, you know, under apartheid, it means that you were not white enough. And under democracy, you are not necessarily black enough. And Dereleene, you were just sharing before we went, and no, actually Charis was just sharing before we went into a break, that we actually need to get to a point where we take accountability, you know, and how is it that that accountability can find its expression in communities? How do you see that accountability finding its expression in the colored community?
Well, for starters, you know, our parents have taught us a certain way. And that goes across the board. What we've seen or what they have instilled in us as children growing up is something that far too often we need to unlearn. And we need to then say, it's like the other panelists were saying, you know, the racism amongst ourselves. So when we start taking accountability, we need to take for our actions, for all of the things that we've accepted, and for all of the things that we have probably propagated. So when we come to terms with who we are and we accept and unite amongst ourselves, because that is the one thing that we've always said, if there is a challenge in any other community around us, those individuals will stand up and they will rise together. We, on the other hand, it would be a division of, oh, I don't really like you very much, so I'm not going to stand with you, even though I agree with your point. So it's unity that we need. It is who we need to accept. And also the fact that we in many instances have created those kinds of niches and those types of conversations to take place where we are not saying, okay, you know what, I actually like this person. Or I actually like what this person is saying. And as much as we don't have a lot in common, our common purpose is the same. So let us get together, barring the texture of my hair, the color of my skin, or where I live, whether or not my toilet is inside or outside. Barring all of that, we have the same purpose, and we need to stand and rise together in that purpose. Then we will start realizing how much love and acceptance we have and how much we are prepared to then instill in our children. So when it comes to that generation, which we are losing at the moment, they will understand why we did it. They will understand the purpose of our love and the sacrifices that we have made for them.
Sure. Help us understand around, and I want us to segue into post-apartheid or into this democratic dispensation. And what democracy has brought and the socioeconomic realities that this democracy has brought for the colored community through job opportunities, through schools, through opportunities of education. And do you feel as though, as the colored community, that the opportunities that are presented in a post-democrat or post-apartheid dispensation were inclusive? In other words, everybody's supposed to fall under affirmative action, and in terms of the classification of BEE, I mean, we even have Asians that are classified under BEE. But does it manifest itself in real form? Tessa, let me go back to you. Does it manifest itself as from job opportunities? Faith comes in, and me and you have got the same qualification. Does Tessa get the job, or does Faith get the job, and do we get it on merit, or is it because we're still ticking?
So I want to start answering this question in a slightly different place and way, right? What I think has happened for us in the last 30 years post-apartheid is that we have gone into further oppression Olympics. And whether that's by the design of the apartheid system or the design of the democratic system, we are kept in ways in competition with each other. And that's a real big problem. And so we all feel like we need to show that we are as oppressed or more oppressed than somebody else, as opposed to that we are more worthy or as worthy as everybody else. What we have is a crisis of legitimacy. We do not feel like we are legitimate as a community in this country. And so when you have something like BEE and affirmative action, I can tell you that across black communities in this country, there are people who feel like they've been hard down by BEE. Because BEE has not benefited black people in general. It has benefited rich people. It's a benefit politically elite people. It's not benefited everybody in Soweto. It's not benefited everybody in Khayelitsha. And so what we've done is we've stayed focused on other people who are still being oppressed by the new system. So we're looking across the road from Eldorado back to Pimville. And we're like, are you getting more opportunities than me? Why are you? Instead of looking at the government that was supposed to give us all equal opportunities and saying, let's all fight them together because we're both still poor. And that for me is the crux of the thing. So the BEE conversation, there's a lot of it that is technically problematic, and there's a lot of parts of the law that we have not figured out, and ways in which that law is being used and abused to include and exclude, right? And we can agree on that. But there are also ways in which that's got nothing to do with it. It's also got to do with the fact that people want to be able to hire the people they know, hire people that look like them, hire people, and most of those people who are in the position to hire are white anyway. So we do have to have a slightly different conversation about the fact that we should not be in an oppression Olympics amongst each other. We should actually be looking for points of, in what ways are we the same in our oppression? And because there's more to be won if we fight together. And I want to pick up on the point that Gushwell made about being politically black. For me, when we say, black, colored, neither of those things for me is a race in terms of biology. And I want to make that clear. For me, race is a thing that white oppression made up to give an excuse to oppress somebody. And colored community is exactly the best example of why it's not race. So when I said earlier, my father didn't look different when he went back to be reclassified. He still had his dark skin, he still had the hair he had. They didn't look at his biology, because biology is race. They actually were looking for cultural things. They were making up race as an excuse. So we must start there. So when I say I'm politically black, this is what black consciousness meant. It meant that we must all recognize that whiteness created blackness to be able to oppress people. So whenever you're oppressed by whiteness, you're black. The other thing is, the reason why I can say I'm politically black is because I have accepted that I must fight with other people who are oppressed all the time. So being black is about accepting that we must fight against racism together. That's it. And then the final thing I'll say about it is that I'm culturally colored and I make no apologies for it. Nobody will tell somebody who is Zulu in this country that they can't say they're black and Zulu. But they will tell me I can't say I'm black and colored. Tyler has never said she's not black. She has just said that she is colored, and we have the right to be colored because Hendrik Verwoerd, I was just saying to Gushwell, Hendrik Verwoerd did not give me the name colored. He might have given my father the name colored, but it was my mother and my community that has made me colored. And so colored isn't just the stereotypes, it's not just the classification, it is also the language, the food, the religion, the solidarity, the friendships, the beautiful things we've made in our community. Despite the pain and the violence, we must own the things we have made, despite the fact that it comes from bad things.
Welcome. Before we go to the podium, and I'm just looking, to the floor, and I'm just looking, and I'm mindful of time as well, because I want to give everybody an opportunity to really speak on this. Talk to us a little bit about where does the assumption of violence come from? Especially in color. So you even hear jokes. You know, I think it was a Trevor Noah joke where he got up on stage and we could all understand when he said, "Steekom, baby, steekom." We all understood, right? And the assumption that the color community is violent or the gangsterism is, where does that come from?
I think when we look at the like even as Tessa has mentioned, in order for us to understand the future, we need to go back to the past. I think when I was growing up, the terminology or the statements that were always made is that the white man, in order to become a man, he needs to go to the army. The black man, in order to be classified and to be a man, he needs to go to the bush. And then they would say that the colored, to be a man, he needs to go to prison. So I grew up with that notion of saying, so in order for me to be a man, I need to go to a place such as prison. And those are the jokes that were made when we were growing up. And I mean, as I was sitting in the audience, and also something that also kind of like came up for me was the fact that it is always these old men, the old people, that pitch us up to war against each other because of their own pain and their own hurt, and where they have been oppressed, and they walk around with that thing of, if I can't get to you, I will influence and infect the next generation to do that. Because when a colored kills a colored, it is not the colored that kills the colored because he wants to, but because he was told to. When I was in,
go deep, explain that.
Yeah, so when I was in prison, I used to remember this guy that was teaching me the ways of the number, as we understand it. And the number is 286 years old, older than all of us sitting in this room. And what he said was that this old man had one thing in his mind. He was hurt, oppressed by the white people. And he wanted to get them back by dismantling and breaking down all the systems that he has put into place. But in order to do that, he had to remove everybody that was not in agreement with him. And he created a 3 different system. So what I'm saying is, we all think that sometimes these systems that we bring into play are there to support us. But the real question that we need to ask ourselves is, the one that's standing there claiming to one power, from which pedestal is he speaking? Is he speaking as a boy who is hurt, who thinks that something was taken from him, and he will use everybody else to get it back? So when we talk about violence that's constantly being spoken into our lives, as young people, we want to break away from that. But we can't, because our grandmother keeps reminding us of the past. You're having this beautiful conversation, Faith, about the colored history. But every time when we are closer to elections, we see Sarafina on the TV. We see black culture. We see black history. We see black people having suffered. But nobody puts what Welcome went through, what Dereleene is going through, what you guys are going through as colored people. That's not been spoken of. So what I'm saying is there's a culture out there that still perpetuates the sense of violence. So I dated a girl who was from Venda. When I met her father for the first time, he never saw me. I dated this girl for 3 months. We were together. I went to meet the father because according to culture, I cannot be dating this girl without having met the father. I went there, spent all my money to get there. And the first thing the father said when he saw me was, "Whoa, colored, no way, Jose. You are going to kill my daughter, you're going to stab my daughter, that's it." And I understood from where he came from. So that is the perpetuation of violence that's constantly being put into our kids' minds, that coloreds are dangerous, coloreds are gangsters, coloreds will not amount to anything. And that is, we sometimes believe that, and we grow up feeling like that is what we need to do.
Faith, can I say something? Yeah. If you look at the state of our communities right now, it looks like a dungeon. Surely someone who has to wake up to that every day, someone that has to wake up to those levels of poverty, of inequality, of no development in the area, surely you become frustrated. If you look at the youth, what is happening, let us just hone into what is happening in our communities right now. Exactly what you're saying. The fact that, you know what, we are being stigmatized, the fact that there's the perception that we are violent. How do we defend our communities right now with what is happening in our communities, where you see our own people killing brother-on-brother violence, gunning each other down? If you look at the fact that we have been marginalized, the fact that there's been no development, the fact that there's been no opportunities, the fact that mom isn't working, dad isn't working, our kids are going out there and, you know what, taking a 500 Rand and a 200 Rand for the sake of buying something decent and fitting into our communities. So there's so much, you know, that one can sort of get input into this conversation, and it all sort of goes and links to different scenarios and different situations that's playing out in our communities right now as a result of the apartheid government, as a result of how we've been programmed, and as a result of the scars of apartheid.
Sure. I've got about 2 minutes before ad breaks, but Samantha, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say that when you look at the colored community, it's almost like we have been very complacent and accepting of the so-called democracy. And because colored people were used as let's say a buffer between the two races, whether white or black, at some point it's almost like colored people were waiting for someone to say, okay, come, it's your turn now. And because it was white supremacy first, and then the black regime came into power, colored people were a part of the struggle, but they were never recognized. And I think that's for the most part why it is that a lot of colored people have not taken up spaces. If you look at the panel here, these are people that have taken up spaces. It's the only reason you've called us here. But aside from that, 30 years into our democracy, and it's the first time we're having this conversation. Absolutely. It took 30 years for us to get to this point to say, what is it about the colored community that they keep on fighting about? Why is it that we're not giving them a voice? Why are we not allowing them into these spaces? And until you can hear the stories of the colored people, you will never understand that. And that is why the colored community will say we are marginalized, because maybe we're waiting for someone to come and fetch us. But we've gotten to a point where we've decided that maybe if we take up spaces, people will see us. And then you can't ignore us, because now we need to have this conversation.
We need to go for an ad break. But I trust you me, the conversation continues, and of course we'll be opening up the floor to our live audience. I think we've got lots of insights. I think we're going to go straight to our audience, and when we come back, and then also I've been told that I've got tons of voice notes. I think our system is even glitching that side, but we'll take your voice notes as well, and then hopefully be able to take your calls. But the conversation continues after we pay the bills.
Metro FM. Yeah, it's where you want to be.
Swipe and save on all your extra favorite drinks at Checkers Liquor Shop. And get savings like 750ml Cliptrip Premium Brandy for $184.99. Save 35 Rand. Valid until 9 May. In-store at Checkers Liquor Shop. Not for persons under the age of 18. Drink responsibly.
Any person aggrieved by any political advertisement or political election broadcast that is broadcast by Metro FM may lodge a complaint within 5 days from broadcast with the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA. To lodge your complaint, please contact ICASA's Compliance Department via telephone number on 012-568-3233. That's 012-568-3233. Or email broadcastingcompliance@icasa.org.za. That's broadcastingcompliance@icasa.org.za. Alternatively, complaintsccc@icasa.org.za. That's complaintsccc@icasa.org.za.
The highly anticipated Metro FM Music Awards are finally here, and the live concert happening with a star-studded lineup of DJs and live performances.
Make some beautiful noise!
On the lineup, Oscar Mbo, Oskido, Dala Tuxin, Makadzi, Lamise Hallworthy, Mtunzi, Luandlunkulu, Boom Shaga, Amos, Naked DJ, and a special live performance by the internationally acclaimed Hoabili.
You can now secure your tickets for 300 Rand at computicket.co.za. Don't miss your chance to be part of this unforgettable celebration. 27th April at Mbombela Stadium, Mpumalanga. #MMA24.
Black to the future. Metro FM. It's where you want to be. Can we just talk?
Metro FM Talk with Faith Mangope. Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Right, 12 minutes after 8 o'clock, of course, the conversation continues this evening. We're going to take it all the way to our audience, and then we're also going to take in some of your calls. We've got lots of your voice notes as well as you're engaging with us on this conversation. Maybe let me start off from the one side of the room, and then we'll work our way to the other side of the room. Hi, ma'am. What's your name?
My name is Elise. I just wanted to touch on one of the points you made, about why is it that most black people feel that colored people do not like them. And I feel like we should have delved a lot into that because, I come from a very mixed race family, black, white, Indian. And for the most part of it, I think it's the way we were raised that the darker you are, right, you are, and the closer proximity to blackness, you are ugly. Right? Sure. So that us wanting to hold on to our whiteness, I honestly feel is an issue within the colored community that has held a lot of us back. So that conversation of taking accountability, I think these are the uncomfortable conversations we need to have. And when black people ask us, but do colored people not like us? We should be honest enough because we know within our communities, people are racist, even amongst families. I mean, within my cousins, close family members, we look so different. And growing up, right, I might be darker than my sister. And I mean, I was prettier, but I would have been seen as the uglier one. And boys would be like, nee, ons like you vir jou nie van jou hare skroes. Do you understand what I mean? So those are conversations that we're not having intentionally, especially with the younger generation, because I can understand the older people, they were so programmed to hold on to their proximity. Like Tessa said, our families had to make the choice about choosing colored because at the time, there were certain positions or opportunities that the colored community could get. Yeah. But now as the democracy is changing, we're not having the conversations with the younger guys saying, listen, this is how it was for our elders, but for us, we are a part of this country. And also accepting that we should be politically black, because if you are not, are you politically white? Do you understand what I mean? I sort of feel like the colored community is not doing enough to have the conversations about our blackness. The anti-blackness in colored communities is not discussed a lot. We sort of hide it, and that's where that thing comes from with a lot of black people.
Do you mind if I stay with you on
Sure.
this one? Because,
Yes.
I mean, you want to go into it, so let's go into it.
Yes.
Do you seek white approval? Do colored people seek the approval and acceptance of the white man?
I would say 100%, and this comes from our elders, and that's why there's a lot of unlearning for us to do, because our elders had to make that difficult choice, especially the ones that were fairer in nature, and they would always tell us, "Julle moet tog hierdie donker ouens trou nie," because they wanted us to sort of hold on to that white, our proximity to whiteness. So, we don't speak about it enough, but, we straighten our hair. So I used to wear my hair as an afro, but that was frowned upon, right? Because now I'm looking too black. We must straighten our hair, and there's nothing wrong with straightening our hair, but it should be a personal choice. It shouldn't be, I need to straighten my hair because then that guy would like me. Do you understand what I mean? And I think we're at a point where if we don't have the conversation with our younger girls, they're going to struggle to fit into a evolving society, and we can no longer sort of sit on the fence and be like, oh, we're not black enough. We have to take up space. We have to have those conversations. We need to let our younger generation understand where the term comes from so that we can sort of break that. I mean, the apartheid blueprint, if I can say that thing should be taught in school so that we can completely dissemble it. It's not something you get over. Do you understand what I
Something
mean?
that you break apart.
Break apart
I'm
and
going
just
to pause you there, ma'am,
Yeah,
because your point has been made, and it's been made so. And may I just say, this conversation and the brutality and the brutal honesty that you've all approached this conversation with is the most humbling experience I've ever been in. Like, it's just the way you're able to say, no, this is how real it is. It is the most humbling experience I think I've experienced as a broadcaster. And I do thank you, you know, for coming as you are and for being just brutally honest, because that's the only way that we're going to build. Let's go to the end of the room.
Thank you very much. My name is Paul Jacobs. I think the conversation is very important because it has never happened before. It takes me back to 1994, where President de Klerk and Mandela had a debate. They blamed each other for the social injustice of us as coloureds. We were not at a table. It's time that we come to that table and also give our part of it. And I am brutally honest if I tell you, we are not going to fix it. We are the product of that. The people who did this injustice must fix it. The factors that did that. And I've heard the word multiple times, intentional. And they need to be intentional about this. This is a political thing that took place. This is the result of politics. And then they still had the audacity to go to CODESA and denied us our Africanness. So this is where we need to start. We need to go for solutions. You can do whatever you want to do. You're a result of this thing. You're not going to fix it. You're not going to get it right. We're not going to get it right. We need the left and we need the right to come around the table so that they can understand. Once they understand what they've done, then they can undo what they've done.
I hear you, sir, but once they understand, and thank you very much for your comment, once they understand what they've done, then they will undo. What if there is no political will to first of all understand? And what if there is no political will to do? Because if you're going to understand, it means you have to acknowledge your role and your part in creating a mess. And mind you, not every single white South African is out there saying, you know what, we messed up. Just like not every black South African is out there saying, you know what, CODESA could have been negotiated better. Yes. And that's just the reality. So then how then do we move it forward? Gushwell, you want to add before I go back to the point?
I'm so sorry for jumping in there, but I think that it's a key point. And Faith, you partially took the words from my mouth. It goes back to the point that you made around taking responsibility, accountability. The fact of the matter is, I think we're missing a trick. And Tessa, I'm sorry, I'm stealing some of what you've said, is the oppression Olympics that we're participating in. Is that, and it's contrary to what I want to say, but I think part of the reason why there would be some happiness in the architects of apartheid is the division that they've managed to perpetuate and to entrench. Because I think that what we should do, if we take a helicopter view of what is going on in South Africa at the moment, we should find solidarity, no matter what your racial classification is. The poverty that you spoke of, Dereleene, exists in Alexandra, Diepsloot, just as much as it exists in Risterval, where I'm from, Eldorado Park, Annandale, Kylie, wherever. The issue is people are living in squalor. People are living in small houses, crime-ridden, poor levels of education, where teachers walk out at 12 o'clock in the night. I'm not saying all teachers. But some teachers would rather go to a union meeting than finish a mathematics class. Where we have nurses that are rude and overworked and tired in our hospitals rather than attending to the medical needs of people. Or, my other favorite one, there's a stock out. There's not enough medication. So the issue is that if I'm in a particular area and I'm experiencing that and I think I'm alone in that experience, I'm not going to seek others so that we can have a joint issue that we can raise and say, but guys, you're actually doing a horrible job. I almost said something else. You are doing a bad job of governance. Because I think that for me is, yes, it's great. So we have people that come forward and say, you know what, CODESA wasn't great. We have someone that says, I'm really sorry for what I did prior to 1994. The question is, what does it actually do? Because my argument is 30 years later, Faith, we should be able to say to people that you should have serviced this nation.
I hear you. I got to go to ads. I'm on a countdown. We'll talk more after this.
Metro FM. It's where you want to be.
As Jack Daniel sippers, we know a thing or two about labels. They usually hold us back unless we create our own. Think about this. We're not just trendsetters, we are the authors of our own narrative. So, let the world watch you and your squad groove to your own beat. Pagamiso old number 7 Pezulu and toast to the most. Jack Daniels, make your own label. Sip responsibly. Not for sale to persons under the age of 18.
Whoever you are when your windows are rolled all the way up, own that. Own a sexy new look. Own forward-thinking technology. Own Bluetooth connectivity with voice recognition. Own power, performance, and fuel economy. Own your journey with the new Kia Seltos, from the brand that's #1 for quality and reliability. Visit your nearest Kia dealership for a test drive today. Kia, movement that inspires.
Liberation.
There are many people who feel
fairness, integrity,
that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and non-violence.
However you define democracy, treasure it.
Against a government whose reply is only savage attacks.
Metro FM. Marking 30 years of democratic strides.
Let's go.
2 days. That's right. Only 2 days left to the penultimate Metro FM Music Awards.
My most memorable Metro FM Music Awards was 2018 Swane, but I know that Mbombela can win that title back.
Hurry and get your tickets now at CompuTicket.
The best collaboration song goes to...
Don't miss out on South Africa's biggest music awards in Mbombela, Mpumalanga.
And the support has just been so phenomenal. And this award, oh my God, it means everything.
Saturday, 27th April. Metro FM. Black to the future.
Can we just talk?
Metro FM Talk with Faith Mangope. Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
It is 24 minutes after 8 o'clock. Of course, the conversation continues this evening. Let's go for more questions and comments from the floor. And then we're also going to take some from you at home, because I know that a lot of you have got something to add to this conversation. Ma'am, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Right, so my name is Councillor Debbie Williams-Moses from the city of Tshwane, aka #current situation. Pew, 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 pew. So I am from Eastersport. So I am also from a colored community. So I actually just want to quickly take us back, and then I will take it forward as well. So there's two things. We as colored people, we are so scared to embrace our heritage, our bloodlines, and go and find out where we come from. That is one of the main reasons why we have the sense of identity loss that we are suffering from. With that being said, a lot of knowledge and experience that is supposed to be passed down from the elders to the younger generations is then lost. If we just take it 20 years from now, what we are currently experiencing in our colored communities is modern genocide, designed by the system to extinct ourselves. Because we will not be able to point fingers in saying it is you, the white man, that have oppressed us. But due to the systematic brainwashing that have happened throughout generations before us, we are doing it by our own hands. We have children killing children. We have children killing their parents. We have a lot of things happening within our communities. And then a lot of times it is also linked to drugs. It is linked to trauma that we usually don't go back to go and heal. We don't go back to the root cause of why are these people or the children using drugs? Why have they fallen into that trap of oppression, suicide, and all of the things that is happening within our communities? So I just want everybody to sit and just think 20 years from now, by the rate we are going now, we will not have a generation that will be able to bear children to take our race firstly forward, because we will be extinct. All of us here, I think the factories are closed already, you know? But the ones that comes 10 years, 20 years behind us, they are not there, meaning that we will be extinct little by little.
Thanks very much, ma'am. Let's go to the other side, and I also have got calls, and I want to take Anonymous specifically. I do see that Anonymous, you're trying to reach out to us. I'll come to you as well. Yes, sir.
Hi, good day. Hi, Faith. My name is Neville.
No, you're on, Neville.
Am I on?
Yep.
Hi, my name is Neville, co-founder of the organization called Colored Lives Matter. So I just want to elaborate, take something out and put something back. When you asked the question if coloreds hate blacks or blacks hate coloreds, in my personal view or experience, we were part of a appointment of a principal in El Dorado Park, a school called Closprate High at the time. And myself and Sheris, we were there because the appointment of the principal was deemed as flawed, and it was a black principal that had to be appointed. And it was looked down with the available teachers or principals that had the credentials. They were not looked at. And while we were walking, going into the hall to go and have this discussion or debate, one of the guys from SATU, he literally said, because I understand Zulu, Tswana, and Afrikaans, so I'm a chameleon. And that is why it's important to me, because I'm a South African, I'm an African, and I'm fixing the matters within El Dorado Park because of what I feel for the community, not for the race specifically, because of what I've seen. Because some of my cousins will say, but Neville, you sometimes classifying yourself as a colored, but I do have colored blood, colored family, you know. So I'm not fixing the race issue more so I'm fixing the situation within our community. To further continue about the issue that happened at the wall. So this guy from SATU literally said, we're going to show the colors. In layman's terms, ons gaan alles vat. We're not going to give them anything. You understand? That's what he literally said, a guy from SATU. And back to the issue or the point of taking accountability. Us too, as colors, sometimes will say, hey, didakis maknar. You know, you'll find people making those kind of statements. So inevitably, like it's been said today, all of us, we need to take accountability for what we've done, for what we have said. Because like Councillor Peter also said, when you come to our communities, the backyard dwellers living in our communities are black people. And they're living amongst one another. There's no issue of race with the people on the ground. But I think more to say, the issue comes from the political side. The politicians up there, hierarchy, they are the ones that's actually causing the division, in my view. That's what I believe. Thank you.
You very much for that one, Neville. You know, it actually brings to note a saying. Actually, my father taught me this saying when I was growing up. He said to me, because he also is the guy that taught me Karl Marx at the age of 5. Good parenting. But my father said to me, what we need to understand is that apartheid was we never conquered apartheid. We never won. What happened was that apartheid was discontinued because it had fulfilled the mandate. And the mandate was to keep separation alive amongst black and anybody else who was not white. So, and this conversation we're having today makes me realize just how much dismantling we actually need to do if we're going to prove that statement false. That apartheid fulfilled the agenda. The mandate was to separate, divide, and conquer. And clearly, judging by this, apartheid did well in dividing. What we need to work on is how apartheid no longer conquers. Okay, I see can I take a call? I'm going to come back to you as well. Welcome. I'm going to go to, and I've got 1, 2, 3 hands and 4 hands raised this side, so I do see you. But I want to speak to Anonymous. Anonymous, are you calling in from prison?
I'm calling from prison, yes.
Okay. Anonymous, the floor is yours. Please go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Faith. Good evening to the panelists, and good evening to the listeners. Faith, I'm a 40-year-old colored man. Mm-hmm. I've been in prison for the past 20 years.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I've committed my crime. I've done bad. I've made wrong choices, and I'm serving my sentence. But Faith, what I want to bring to light today is that when it comes to the colored community, they are being systematically attacked. Same as your previous caller raised and said that we're being extinct, or how can I say, we're being in some form of genocide or something.
Sure.
Right, let me explain to you. Right, I come from El Dorado Park. So in the 90s, we were taught to steal cars. Or let me be more specific. We were taught how to steal car radios and wheel caps. From there, you would graduate and you would learn how to steal a car. Then out of the blue, someone would come. It would always be a Bra Kenny or a Bra Joe or just somebody that just comes from somewhere. You don't have no history on this guy. You don't know where's this guy from. Then you would bring a gun. Now he teaches us something else and says, guys, I've got buyers. The buyers don't want stolen cars no more. They want hijacked cars. Do you understand? Then at a later stage, you'll find Sister Florence or Sister Prudence coming from where? We don't know from where. And then she would come, and then now she would teach another different crime into our community. Do you understand? So now, us as coloreds, we have a very addictive personality where if we learn to do something and we get some form of financial benefit from it, we cling to it and we start going hardcore on it.
Sure.
You understand?
I got you.
So if you look at our schools, we don't have any workshops where someone comes around and says, okay, guys, this is how it works to become a businessman. You take a 50 Rand, you register your company name. You take 125 Rand, you register your company with CIPC. You take those documents, you go to a bank, you now open a bank account, and now you become a businessman, whether you're selling apples or tomatoes or whatever. We do not have those kind of workshops. We do not have people coming to us and speaking, listen here, this is a way forward. This is a way for you to eat. What we rather glorify in Aldo's or Westbury or whatever is the big gangster, the guy making moves, the guy with the big car.
I hear you. Anonymous, look, I have to cut it there just unfortunately because of time, and I'm very conscious of time, but I appreciate it. I'm not going to go into the whole how you phoning us from prison part, but that's okay. But I appreciate the fact that A, you listen to the show, so keep listening, and B, that you want to add into this conversation. So I really do appreciate you calling in. Can I take more from the floor, and then I'll go back to the phone lines as well? Let's also go to the back there as well. The gentleman as well has been waiting, then we're going to come back to the front as well. Hi, ma'am. Let's start off with you, ma'am.
Goeienaand, my naam is Deirdre. Good evening, Faith, and good evening to Metro FM listener. This feels like a big shrink offices where people come and they complain. So what I can say is blah, blah, blah. To the panel up there, you are the first ones that will leave this room. En wat julle gaan sê, kyk vir daardie kleerling. Dis waarvan af kom. Ons beklei van elke woord wat ek gehoor het. It's fight. Let's change the narrative. I've never seen myself as colored. I've never seen myself as any other race. It didn't come from my mom, where she influenced me the wrong way. It came from you yourself. You have a choice. You decide. We don't have an addictive nature. We are not ruled by what people say we should do and how do. I'm energy, so I will not operate from nobody else. I grew up in these neighborhoods that are so-called colored. Why we keep on referring back to the 90s? It's not going to come back. Dit gaan nie terugkom nie. Niks gaan verander nie. Maar ons het dieselfde gesprek jaar in, jaar uit. Die verskil kom by die individu. You as the individual have to go out there. My children doesn't know race. Why? Because to me it was never a thing. I've never went through apartheid. Ek ken nie vir Hendrik Verwoerd nie. Ek ken nie vir Mandela nie. Hierdie wat julle praat van, ja, maar ons kleerlinge voel dat ons is swart genoeg nie, ons is wit genoeg nie. Jy doen dit yourself. So, hou op met die bla bla en hou op hierdie conversation gebeur môre ook weer. It happens every day. So if you still call yourself a colored, just call yourself by your name and do what your name, your purpose is. Hou op met wit, swart, klering. So
in other words, focus on the human race. I do appreciate that. Okay, let's go over there, and then we'll go to you, sir, as well, and then we'll come back to you. I do see you.
Good evening. I'm Johan Beetge. Soos julle kan sien, ek is wit en 'n boer. Maar ek is ook julle neefs en niggies. I humbly ask permission if I could speak. And I've got my friend here, Alistair. I wish he could get up and give his testimony. of what is a heart. You just made a comment and said, we're addressing symptoms. I'm here first and foremost with a holy discontent. I live in Sophiatown. I was in Northcliffe. I had 3 houses. I immigrated to America. You know, when I got off at JFK, who I found there? Myself. It's not a matter of skin. I'm white. As jy 'n boer op 'n eiland sit, een boer. If you put a boer, an Afrikaner on an island, you come back in 3 years, there's 3 political parties, 3 churches and 3 schools. We are so divided in ourselves, Afrikaners. We also have a hatred. And as the sister said there, it's not a matter of skin. The problem is, yes, I take full ownership of what has happened. But I didn't grow up in a family that hate my fellow brothers. I'm not a boer. I'm white. But I'm first and foremost a human being. And so are you, my brothers and sisters. So it's not a matter, there's small elements in society, and I will shut up with this. And my brother will shut me down or pull me down. We have small issues in the Afrikaners. We try to keep on them. Most of our children, our Afrikaner children, my sons are in America, they're all over the place. I've stayed, I came back. Our children are fleeing. There's more coloreds now in South Africa, 4.69 than whites. We are the lowest, we're 4.35. So we've set the rainbow nation. What do? We put colors out there. It's a matter of our hearts. We need to change our hearts. We can sit and change constitution. I see these political parties and I say go and vote. I don't trust the bittereinders. I will never vote for an Afrikaner again because they're all corrupt. The moment you get power, one brother says, give me power. The moment you get power, you corrupt. The oppressor becomes the oppressed and the oppressor becomes the oppressor again. It's not a matter of a color. It's a matter of, I live in Sophiatown, a block from Witbooi. I drive in there, I pick up my brother, he's in Waterval. I see the youngsters there without purpose, without any hope for the future. I look at these kids and I say, these are my brothers and sisters without hope. Can we just change one? A youngster came out of prison just 4 weeks ago, and I picked him up and I listened to his heart. And I said, my son, you've got a pure heart, but they screwed up your mind. Protect your heart, because out of the heart flows the issues of life. So and there's nothing more deceitful than the heart. So I rest my case. We are brothers and sisters. And if our hearts change, we will become one in God.
Well, if they talked a little bit about dismantling, I think we're beginning to dismantle this evening as well. I need to go pay some bills. I see all of your hands. Let me go pay some bills. We're going to come back. I'm going to go back to the floor, and then I'm going to go to the voice notes. I know that many of you also wanting to engage with us on our voice notes. Please do keep on. And I do see some of your calls as well. Zakes in Naturena as a channel in El Dorado Park. I do see you as well. We're going to come to you after this.
Metro FM. It's where you want to be.
Toast. Being present. Quench the sparkle of life. Pour into each other. Connect. Be here now. Celebrate the moment.
Taste liquid luxury. Indulge in our range of brutal fruit spritzer. Enjoy responsibly, not for persons under the age of 18.
The Metro FM Awards 2024. Thank you very much. Proudly sponsored by the Mutsepe Foundation and hosted by the Mpumalanga Provincial Government.
This is amazing right here.
Hashtag MMA24. Hashtag Black to the Future.
Turn your Hollywood Bet gaming experience into a spectacular casino royal adventure.
Bid up to 100 Rand or more on selected Hollywood bets, plated slots, and live tables. And you could win one of 3 luxury trips for 2 to Las Vegas. Hollywood bets, feel the magic.
T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. Hollywood Bet supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Can we just talk?
Metro FM Talk with Faith Mangope. Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
All right, it is about 41 minutes past 8, and we're continuing in just a second. I'll take in some of your voice notes. I do see them. But I do have, we've got microphones. So let me start off, sir, at the back there with the glasses. Then we're going to go to you, and then we're going to come to this side, and then we're going to go back to this side as well. Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. I'll be quick to it. Just want to comment on the panel. You guys are extremely articulate, and your knowledge concerning the history of South Africa and where we are as a people in our ethnicity is absolutely admirable. But I wanted to share from a different viewpoint and ask the question, if the crowd here today was a group of next generation leaders that consisted of white, black, colored, and Indian, how would the response from those crowd have been? This was a great history lesson, but we must identify one. Let me start with my first point. Our history as South Africa is found in politics, but our identity as individuals can't. Our identity must be found in Christ. 2, I want to state the following. If new ideas are needed, experience means nothing. 90% of today's discussion was about what has happened, but very little about what is going to happen. Our ideology is born out of our personal experience. But what if your experience is not relevant to the future that's needed? Is your ideology something that's the enemy of the future that we need? Politics has become strong only on the premise of past events and not future prospects. Politics has become strong only in reference to how my culture has been oppressed and how I can use that to endorse the vote that I need to get on the 29th of May. So what we're actually doing is recreating the past and just painting it as a better future. I want to close with this. Politics has become like the gangster system in our streets. A young boy whose father was shot is going to be reminded of his father having been shot 5 years ago. So what we are doing in the political system is this, reminding a young person what the past has done to his parents and endorsing that as the equilibrium on the premise on which a vote must take place. And unless that changes, nothing is going to change.
This is why I love young people in conversations. And panelists, please take a note of his challenge, because I'd like us to close with that specific note in terms of how do we then move that conversation forward into building a South Africa that we truly want to inherit and see. I love young people in conversation. Okay, where else was I going? Let's come here.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, the listeners online. I would like to go into a little bit of a different direction in terms of land restitution. And I hear you guys and you're saying that we shouldn't go back. But the fact of the matter is we've been robbed. Our forefathers has been robbed of the land. For me, as a new generation and a descendant of the Khoisan, my forefathers had a farm in Northern Cape, Uppington. And through a long story, cutting short, we've been robbed out of the farm. And as the present moment youth, we need to start on the ground level now. Unlike other, let me say, it's unfortunate I have to go there, the white minority, which was apartheid. Their grandfathers, when someone died, they inherit a house or a farm. Unfortunately, we have to start on ground level 0. We don't have that privilege of my grandmother is going to leave me a house or my grandfather left me a farm. So we need to start to talk about the fact of land restitution.
I hear you.
Thank you.
I hear you. Where else am I going? At the back there, sir, with the cap. Yep, go ahead.
Evening, everybody. Name is Ishmael van Wyk. I just want to bring up something. I want to move away slightly. Currently, we have a political party that's collecting colored votes and selling it to the ANC. Right, I said we're going to go different. This room needs to hot up.
Let's just pause it there for a second, sir, because this conversation is not about party politics, and I don't want it to get lost in the party politics. And there will be a time for party politics, but today is not that time.
Okay, I just wanted to bring it up. Thank you.
Today is just not that time. Who else? Ma'am, you raised your hand up. Let's give it to the lady right here. Yeah. I promise you there will be plenty of time for party politics, not tonight.
Thank you so much, Faith. My name is Edith Klaasen. I'm from
let's everybody
Yep. Mine is just a comment. I'm from Rijgenpark. Rijgenpark, back in the day, 1960, I was about 4 months when my parents moved to Rijgenpark. Then the streets were dusty and untarred, I would say. Because of the racial thing, it affected me as well. It's easy to say, let's move on, but I'm scarred. And that's the fact of the matter. Because 1960, when we had to move from Actonville, I was born in Benoni, but we had to move to Rijgenpark because of the color thing. The people that lived in Rijgenpark at that time, that was called Sturtonville, had to move to Vosloorus, the then Vlakplaas. And those are the scars that we're facing today. Because now Rijgenpark is now integrated. We've got everybody everybody in Rijgenpark staying there. Now we must just accept and say, no, it's my brother. No, let them come. Yes, it is our brothers and sisters. And I'm glad that the faith-based people are here so that they also understand we come from a scarred generation. How do I just move on to say, it's fine, I accept you, you're my brother, you're my sister. Yes, you are my brother and my sister in faith, but I'm scarred. And I just wanted to say that to you, Faith. Thank you very much for bringing this to the floor, and to our attention, and opening up this door for us. To the panel, thank you very much. Very insightful. I would love to attend a session like this again. Thank you.
Trust you will keep having them. Thank you very much. Can I go to voice notes? I've got lots of voice notes. Let me go straight to your voice notes. This is what you had to say.
Good evening, Faith. Lovely topic, because it's been lingering in my mind for quite a while, and I'm glad that somebody is actually tapping into it. I actually do feel that the colored community has been left behind in this democratic South Africa, because there hasn't been much improvement in the colored communities that I've seen in Johannesburg. So in terms of the housing, infrastructure, there hasn't been much of a change. It's mainly been done by private, where you'll find that ShopRite will build a supermarket in that community and whatnot. But from a government's point of view, no, there hasn't been much change towards the colored community. Yet at the same time, I would like to differ with the gentleman who said that coloreds never saw themselves better than black people, because I grew up next door to a colored community. I was in Zakane, and the colored community was Gelexdal. Every time we would go to the colored community to go swim, you would feel that you don't belong. The colored kids would drag you under the water, try to drown you, and then when we come back, they would stone us and everything until we got home. So unfortunately, though it's not something that would be probably seen in a good light, but coloreds before democracy were seeing themselves to be better than black people. I'm not trying to be snacks about it, but it's the way it was, and it's what we lived under. Thank you. Spootler in Johannesburg.
Okay, let's do this. Let's go pay some bills. I've got, I want to count down again. Let's go pay some bills. It's good. It means that we're making money. 10 minutes to go before the top of the hour. We're going to come back. We're going to have some closing remarks from our panelists. We're also going to have some closing remarks from the floor this evening.
We don't play games. We wrote the game. Metro FM. It's where you want to be.
The Metro FM Music Awards 2024. Black to the Future. The Metro FM Music Awards Lifetime Achievement is sponsored by the Motsepe Foundation. Join us on the 27th of April as we honor two musical legends for their musical contributions spanning decades. Catch the live broadcast on SABC 1 and stream it on SABC Plus. The Metro FM Music Awards 2024, brought to you by the Mpumalanga Provincial Government. Metro FM is where you want to be.
Let the good times roll. Turn it up. It's Metro FM, the biggest commercial radio station in the land. We won't stop. Keep it locked in Zanzi's favorite radio station. Non-stop entertainment with nothing but the best. Let's go. We are the heartbeat of the nation. Metro FM. It's where you want to be.
Do you like your Ballantine's whiskey mixed with orange juice or with bitters and soda water, or the old-fashioned way, which is just straight up? Either way, your way is the right way. Share how you like to have your Ballantine's whiskey, and you could win golden tickets for you and two of your friends to enjoy a boiler room experience. There's no way, or there's no wrong way, that is. You simply stay true. Ballantine's whiskey, not for sale for persons under the age of 18. You drink responsibly.
Let's go. 2 days. That's right. Only 2 days left at the penultimate Metro FM Music Awards.
My most memorable Metro FM Music Awards was 2018 Swane, but I know that Mbombela can win that title back.
Hurry and get your tickets now at CompuTicket.
The best collaboration song goes to...
Don't miss out on South Africa's biggest music awards in Mbombela, Mpumalanga.
And the support has just been so phenomenal. And this award, oh my God, it means everything.
Saturday, 27th April. Metro FM. Black to the future.
Can we just talk?
Metro FM Talk with Faith Mangope. Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
If I had another 3 hours, I would make them stay, but I sadly do not. Maybe let's take a couple of comments and then we'll go to our panelists to close the forum for us. Who's got the microphone? Sir, yes, stand up and say your name.
My name is Taviso Makwela, and yes, I'm not colored, I'm black. Yes. I always thought that the identity crisis is never really an issue, because if you look at the history of this country during the apartheid times, the colored community has always identified themselves as black. Even when they were given an opportunity to join the whites, they refused and they chose to be black. For an example, Trevor Noah comes from a Xhosa family. Although he's colored, and he's the only colored person in the family, but the roots are Xhosa. For an example, my sister, you used your father as somebody who comes from the Tswana family, who lost their identity because of the system. So for me, I thought that the identity crisis comes from the fact that a colored person can come from any tribe. For an example, a colored person can come from a Tswana family, can come from a Pedi family. I thought that was the identity crisis. But now hearing this, it's actually deeper than me, and that's my 2 cents worth of opinion.
Thank you. I'm glad that we're able to learn as a collective this evening, because I think when we understand the systemic atrocities, we understand what is it going to take to fix them. But we cannot understand the way forward unless we understand what caused us to go the wrong way in the first place. So I'm hoping that this was, it afforded us the opportunity to do so. I've got 6 minutes, panelist. Let's make magic. So let me start from this end, Samantha, and then we'll go all the way down. Your closing remarks in terms of how then do we move this conversation forward so that we can truly build an inclusive South Africa?
Do you know, I grew up with a father who used to literally plant it in my head that you are not superior or inferior to anyone. And growing up, I couldn't understand why he continuously used to say that. And I lost my father a few years ago. But as I grew older, and I found myself in spaces never having to feel like I'm not a part of the crew, I understood why he said that. And I remember the conversation about whether or not colored people are marginalized. Yes, we can all agree to that. But myself, as Samantha, can say that that little term of you are not superior or inferior has never made me feel like I'm marginalized. Never. I have found that amongst black people, they have been the most accepting. And the same applies to colored people. How we decide to move forward is completely up to us. And in a society that capitalizes on our division, we need to find a way to move forward.
Much appreciated.
I think very quickly and very simply for me, it's easy. We shouldn't let the architects of apartheid win and entrench the divisions that were created at the time. Number one. Number two, the way forward is by holding those that govern us now to account to make sure that they deliver on behalf of the people. That's for me how the biggest mistake that we can make. And it's not about repeating the same mistakes of the past, and that's why you must know history and that cliche. It's so that you can understand what the issues are, you find that commonality and that solidarity with everyone. Because if South Africans as a whole, I'm not saying that you have to lose your identity, forget your identity, But if South Africans as a whole understand our connected oppression, then we would be able to hold those that claim to lead us today to account and say, but you're not doing well enough. And yes, something needs to be done about the past, and we can't just forget and move along. Because there's a reason why I got a poorer education, I had worse job opportunities, I live in a smaller house, I live in a community that is the way it is today. We need to understand that and fix those things. The only way you can is by understanding the past and working towards the future.
Thanks a lot.
I want to address two things really quickly. One thing is, we must all start from the point that we are all human first. But the first part is important because we all know our humanness shows up different. And the point is to make sure that our differences are not divided, are not things that make us inferior or superior. And so we should take ownership of reclaiming our, not the word colored. If you never want to use the word colored, I'm fine with that. We'll probably find another word anyway. The point is that we must reclaim our ability to identify ourselves, whichever ways work for us and work for our society. We have left it up to somebody else for too long to tell us who we are. We must start telling ourselves who we are, and that's related to my second point. It is the generation that comes after me, the people in their teens and their 20s now, who are showing us that colored can mean something that their grandparents could never have imagined. We must give them grace to not be saddled with our baggage, and we must allow them to be able to create whatever identities in new ways and not feel threatened by what they say or do.
Sure. Much appreciated. Welcome.
Yeah, and that's why I'm also saying, in retrospect to what Tessa is saying, is that our main focus is the youth, and that we do not give them the scars of the past, and that we focus on what is important. I think the most important thing, and this is what the architects of apartheid were doing, and they did do it, it was to let go of the TRC, which was the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, because if we had gone through with that process, we might have been a much better healed nation today. And I do feel that we still need TRC. We still need the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, because there's people here in this room that still have a lot of hurt that they're operating and working from, joining political parties with agendas, and not with transparency, and not with a good heart, and without a motivation of love. Those are the things that we need to address, because the pain that you are holding on to is the scars that you are giving to our young people. And we don't need that. The prisons are full. And the reason why the Numbers gang and every other gang out there is growing is because those people operate with one thing and one thing only, and that is unity. Checking in with each other every single morning and finding out where people are and what they are doing. And if those people are not in line with them, they remove them and address the situation immediately. That is what we need to do.
I hear you. Dereleene?
Thank you so much. For me, allow me to bring it home. I'm saying let us refrain from perpetuating the very thing that we are addressing. Hulle kinders, onze tyd, colored lives. Let us move away from that. Let us realize that as South Africans, as people, we are more alike than what we are different. Let us foster unity in all spaces, in our schools, in our communities, in our conversations, and in our utterances. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Thanks, Faith. I think it's much deeper than that. Right now, the equity bill, for instance, that was passed just recently, still brings up those scars that we are trying to heal. But I think for us as colored people, the one thing that we must do is to unite as a race first. And not because the reason why you don't like or you would kill your colored brother or sister is because you don't like what you see in yourself, not in the next person. So we need to start there and go back to basics. So once we accept ourselves, we are able to deal with our own hurt, and we are able to deal with the other issues that are at hand to bring South Africa as one, that we are all seen as South Africans.
Charis?
Quickly, I think everybody said all that we needed to say with regards to that. So all I'm saying is on the 12th of May, we'll be gathering at the American Embassy in Sandton. I expect you to take off your T-shirts, come as a human being, be there, and let's say that colored lives matter too. 9 a.m. and just come in there and show who you are. Authentically yourselves, and most importantly, be true to the cause. Take off your colors.
I love that. And thank you so much. I've got another commentary from my esteemed colleague who I'm going to leave in the capable hands all the way until midnight. But I thought that you would like to just add, because I mean, you've been listening to this conversation. Just, from your observation as well.
I have very little to say.
Play more music on Metro FM and have fun. That's all that I can say. Let the music do the talking for once. Thanks, guys. And tuning tonight.
Definitely tune in tonight. Of course, that is Paul Mtechacha that you can expect from 9 until midnight. And of course, that is Life and Music. Ladies and gentlemen, I do thank you. Thank you for your authenticity. Thank you for showing up as you are. Thank you for having brutally honest conversations, because if you are truly to build a non-racial, inclusive country, it starts by us being able to unpack the past so that we can build the future. But that can't be done unless we've unpacked the past, heal from the past, so that we can build the future. And more than anything else, and I love to just take from what our panelists were saying, that if we allow them to keep oppressing us, even psychologically and mentally, we'll never move this country forward. And what kind of a country are we leaving for our children? Because they cannot be the ones that are inheriting our scars and our pain. So thank you so much once again, and this is where we leave it for Metro FM Talk. Until you and I talk again, have a fantastic rest of your Thursday. Please do stay tuned for Paul Mtechacha who's coming up next, but until you and me speak again, bye-bye.
If you missed it, catch the podcast on metrofm.co.za. Metro FM is committed to a code of conduct as outlined by the Broadcasting Complaints Commissioner of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech